welcome to this ET Now special. I'm Nayanthara Rai. Today my guest is the TRAI Chairman RS Sharma. Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for joining us here in ET Now. A lot of controversy over the last few days thanks to the new policy when it comes to the interconnect usage charge. So right at the outset, Mr. Sharma, I'd like to say that the purpose behind my interviewing you today is to clear the air, talk about transparency, to assuage the fears of the market, all the stakeholders, the public at large. So a lot of straight questions. So
no problems.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'll get straight down to it. Ever since you announced the cut 58% to 6 paise of the IUC, which would be then phased out in 2020, there have been a lot of allegations. A lot of companies have publicly said only one telecom provider is going to benefit. That will be RelJio, to the tune of 5,000 crore rupees. How do you react to that?
See, when you conduct this exercise of finding out IUC, let's first understand, for your viewers as to what IUC is. IUC is actually a charge which one telecom operator pays to another one for handling the other telecom operators' call. Right?
Yes.
So that's what is IUC. Now, IUC is essentially depends on the work done. How much IUC you should get is a matter of work done. So the TRAI, when it issued a consultation paper on 5th of August 2016, the basic purpose was to compute the cost of work done. And that's what, in that process, it consulted all the stakeholders, it had workshops with them, it had open hour discussions with them. And, after that, it came to a conclusion that it is 6 paise. Now, obviously, this decision of 6 paise is arrived at after a huge consultation plus by an objective process. Now, if it benefits somebody or if doesn't benefit somebody is not really the way we look at it.
But the work that has been done by the incumbents. They are what they have built the highways, and how RelJio is also able to use their network, right?
It's not a question of using the network. The entire telecom is based on interconnect using. Right, telecom is, if you build your own isolated telecom companies, it's of no use because customers will be able to talk to each other only when there's an interconnect. So interconnect is at the heart of the telecom operations, and it's not a question of who is using whose infrastructure. It's actually mutual use. So that's how it happens, and it's regulator's job, and it's regulator's job the entire worldwide to compute these costs. And that's what we have done.
So as a regulator, are you saying you're not concerned that it only benefits one operator and the others are standing to lose 5,000 crores a year?
No, it's not a question of not concerned. It's a question of carrying out an exercise, and that exercise gives a certain result. It's my job to ensure that that result is what is published and that result is what is operated upon.
You came up with an explanatory memorandum, which I felt was silent on one issue, which is the financial position of the telecom operators. Even as you are sharply cutting the IUC by 58% and even phasing it out, there is a parallel exercise being carried out by the government, a cabinet secretary-led interministerial group looking at ways to rescue telecom operators. Is the regulator disconnected or on a totally different wavelength from the government?
No, certainly not. You see, the point is that, first of all, I want to make a point that what is the connection between the IUC charges and the stress and the health of the telecom sector is something which I have not been able to understand, because to my mind there is no connection.
Okay.
Right. Ultimately, IUC charges is something which it's not a profit. It should not be a profit for any company.
So when the incumbents say that they are losing money, that they have been losing money since the launch of RelJio because they're giving it at below cost, it should be 30 paise, 14 paise was below cost.
This is what they are saying. This is what we have computed, and and that computation and the Excel sheets are all in the public domain. We issued a 62-page explanatory memorandum. 32 pages of that are devoted to the methodology of computation and the Excel sheets and the cost parameters which have been taken from the data which is taken from the telcos themselves. So our calculation gives rise to 5.90 paise per minute, and we have kept it at 6. So there is no question.
But when you calculated this, Mr. Sharma, you have decided this time round to not take the cost of spectrum into account.
Please point out the errors in that computation, number one. Number two, with regard to the methodology, just hold on. Regard to methodology, this methodology of lyric, which is actually the avoidable costs which are used to handle these costs, is something which is used by all 26 countries of European Union are using this methodology.
But they charge an IUC which is much higher. It's 1.27 euro, which is 90
yeah,
rupees.
so but then the call charges are also very, very higher there. Our call charges are 40 paisa.
And they pay more for spectrum.
No, our IUC is actually 20% now of the usual call charges. Their IUC is much, much less percentage. You see, you should see the IUC as a percentage of call charges, because ultimately when one operator's customer calls another operator, the work done in both these legs are same, right? So basically this IUC, there it's much less in terms of percentage, number one. Number two, in the last 15 years, the reduction in the IUC in European Union, for example, has been of the order of 90% plus. So it's, and this one which we have done is 57. So essentially, to say that, you know, lyric is the method which they have used, we are also using the pure lyric method.
But Mr. Sharma, the point is that spectrum in India is one of the costliest in the world. It costs 15 to 20 times more than what it costs in the developed markets, including Europe. You've also got lower tariffs in India when compared to the developed markets, particularly Europe. So when we try to compare the two, and you talk about the European experience in your explanatory memorandum, you have 6 paise on one hand and you have 90 rupees or 1.27 euro.
You cannot compare Europe with India in many senses. Let me tell you, what is the population of Europe?
My point is that you are talking about the European experience in your explanatory memorandum.
I am talking of the methodology used in Europe. Methodology is something different.
But should it be what we should?
Certainly, this is the way to go. This is lyric methodology. Methodology is the best methodology which is being used around the world, and this is what we have used.
But then don't the incumbents have an argument that we paid an arm and a leg for spectrum? You're not even taking that into account?
No, it's not a question of spectrum is actually something which is not taken into account in this, number one. Number two, you don't get a spectrum for, you know, serving somebody else's customer. You get a spectrum for your own use, right? Right. So essentially in this methodology, you are basically, the whole idea is that you should take the minimal avoidable cost to compute as to how much will you charge, because you are not expected to make profit out of handling somebody else's call. That's the broad principle and philosophy of IUC.
And what has changed in the last 2 years, Mr. Sharma? Because 2 years ago, the methodology was very different when you were looking at spectrum cost plus common cost. What has changed in the last 2 years that now it has been decided to do a U-turn almost when it comes to methodology?
Let's put it this way. On 2011, we told the Honorable Supreme Court that within 3 years we will come to bill and keep methodology, right? So in 2014 we should have come to bill and keep methodology by that logic. So it's not as if, you know, something which is, the technology had changed, the networks natures have changed. Now you have 11% network which is on 4G. Every operator has now announced the, you know, going on to IP networks and 4G networks. Also remember that every operator's back end is now IP based, and the front end will soon become IP based.
It's not fully IPv based as yet.
It's fully IP based, but front end will also become fully IP based, access part also. So I think we are moving towards a situation where call and voice will become an application on top of data. Data, as you know, is the new raw material. Data is going to, you know, from data you can produce pictures, from videos, from messages, and voice. And voice is one of those applications which consumes very little data. So actually, if you, in a data world, voice becomes, the cost of voice delivery becomes insignificant.
But for all that to happen, Mr. Sharma, we are going to need huge investments by the telecom companies. They say that they're bleeding. No, they don't have the money to do these investments.
Everybody is making those investments, and I think the hugeness of investment is something which one can, you know, sort of figure out as to how much huge that investment is. Because I think what is going to happen is every company has announced their plans to go to basically 4G and VoLTE, and they will go. And I think India will move much faster. The deadline, you know.
So I want to come back to the timeline when you said that you had actually in 2011 the Supreme Court had been told about bill and keep. But I have read that judgment. It also said, and it spoke about, and what TRAI had said about symmetry. There should be symmetry of traffic. You don't have that. It's asymmetrical at the moment.
Tell me.
You have a tsunami of calls, as the incumbents to say, originating from Geo.
Let me answer that question of symmetry. See, once you are being paid for the commodity which you are providing, and commodity in this case is handling somebody else's call. If you are being paid for it, then how does it make a difference whether you are handling 10 calls or 20 calls? Does it really, if you are earning a profit, the more calls will mean more profit for you. If you are getting a loss, more call will mean more loss for you. But in case it is being paid for, there is no profit, there is no loss.
So you're saying there is no loss that is ever made on account of IUC, and this is a false statement that the incumbents are making?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is not, I will not call it false. What I'll say is that we have given a statement, we have given the calculations, let them challenge the calculations, and they have been consulted on these things. Now the Excel sheets are also in public. Let them find out flaws in that.
Everyone from the incumbents, whether it was a Vittorio Colau himself, to a Kumar Mangalam Birla, to Sunil Bharti Mittal, have been writing to you and to the government on this very contentious issue.
Right.
Since your policy decision, has there been any conversation with the government on this? They've been writing to the Prime Minister, they've been writing to the Telecom Minister.
No. The point is that everybody obviously will write his own, whatever is in his own interest. So they have been sort of telling their part of the story. We have heard everybody's story, and then we are given a decision. That's how it is.
But you're obviously expecting a protracted legal battle, if I can call it that. I believe you have filed 18 caveats across high courts. Is that correct?
No. You see, 18 or 19 is not the issue. Issue is the caveat filing is a normal practice which we do. Depending on the sensitivity of the subject and the possibility of legal battle. Our thing is that the courts should hear TRAI, the regulator, before, and there should be no ex parte judgment, right? So that's a normal process of filing a caveat. That's what we have done. Legal battle, yes, everybody has a right to go to approach the appropriate legal forum. So we have no issues with that.
So once again I ask you that you obviously find no merit at all, whether it's a Bharti Airtel or a Vodafone or an Idea, saying that the IOC is going to lead to profit erosion, that it's going to lead them into more trouble when it comes to the balance sheet.
Tara, we have said that we have given the regulation, and regulation is accompanied by a 62-page memorandum, explanatory memorandum, and that explains every point which you are making. So please read that.
But then why
and also tell your viewers, maybe you run some kind of tutorials on that.
But why was the explanatory memorandum, if you could tell us, Mr. Sharma, silent on the financial state of the telecom companies?
Because the IUC has no connection with the financial stake. The question is, why is it silent on the sky is blue? Something which is irrelevant, why should that be a part of the explanatory memorandum?
The other
something which has no connection with the IUC charge, has no connection with the financial stress. I explained to you, because they are not a profit or a loss making propositions. They are essentially a reimbursement of the cost for the calls which you handle. So why should the financial health of the sector be a part of the explanatory memorandum?
Okay, so you said that should not be part of it. My second...
No, that's not related. That's why it's not a part of.
You have also not explained the explanatory memorandum and how you chose the timeline. Why 1st January 2020? Why not 2019? Why not 2021?
We have done that. We are saying that the way the progression, the way the networks are sort of getting converged and getting converted to 4G and VoLTE, we feel that this is the very conservative timeline. In fact, just to tell you this, we have taken the figures of cost of 2016 December. If we take the cost of September 2017, which is where we are now, the figures will be even less. But we did not want to get into a projection part of it. Okay. So that is why we took the correct, factual things we took. And we have also kept a provision in the explanatory memorandum that the authority will review this situation after 1 year. So 1 year we will see how things have progressed.
Okay.
And then we will take a view as to what needs to be done, whether it needs to be accelerated or whether it needs to be decelerated, whichever way it is to be done.
This question I'm going to ask you once again, and this is going to be on the behalf of investors. They don't have to worry about a flip-flop. 2 years ago, when the TRAI said India is atypical, we have to have the spectrum cost included when it comes to this, and now 2 years later, we are not including it?
No, it's not a flip-flop. It is basically the change in the nature of technology, the growth, the way it is happening. In fact, I see a very bright future for the telecom sector in this country because now we are actually delivering data which is highest ever. We are delivering data at the rate of more than a hexabyte per month.
Okay.
So this is now entire thing is going to change from voice to data. and the Digital India mission and everything which is being done is going to accelerate that process.
I'm going to now ask you a question from the other side.
Yeah.
The same very operators today that are saying that this has not been transparent, it is unfair, etc. At one point, they were the new operators, and they had been asking the government to cut the same interconnect usage charge when it came to BSNL and MTNL. Would you say that today they have lost their spirit or sportsman spirit? That maybe they're being losers?
I don't want to comment on that part, because obviously one obviously has to argue whatever in his self-interest. So that's okay. I mean, at that time they were arguing for cutting the IOC. This time they are arguing that you don't cut the IOC, but that's the name of the game. I mean,
or do you think that also is not, it's not like apples and oranges, because these were also government-owned companies and subsidized?
No, I will not, I'll refrain from making any comment on that. But I think the only thing which I can say is that whatever has been done in terms of IOC is actually extremely transparent. It is extremely objective, and I think it gives a very clear roadmap and glide path for our country to usher into that era of Digital India, and actually get into a situation where data is a new oil.
I'm going to now quote you something that Mr. Rahul Khullar, your predecessor, the former TRAI chairman, has said to ET Now. In an interview which was a live television program, Mr. Khullar said, "It seems as if TRAI first made up its mind that the interconnect usage charge should be 6 paise and 0, and did in a reverse manner figure out the justification." How do you react to that?
I don't know. I don't want to react also. The only limited point which I want to say in all humility is that there are many criticisms which have come, and many articles have been written, and I've been seeing them in the press as also in the digital media. My only submission is that you may be a great person, you may be a great public policy person, you may be a great economist, you may be a wise man, you may be an expert in technology, and that certainly gives you right to make views and give your critiques and give your views about the issues. But I think that does not give you right to question somebody's integrity, somebody's honesty, and either whether somebody is an individual or an organization. That should not have been done. That's not fair. That's the only comment which I'll make.
Are you going to pursue it, maybe legally?
No, I mean, I'm not on that part. I'm just making a submission.
Because I want to now quote something else that he's written in a column, and I wanted to get your charge, because he says, TRAI has been accused of bias, and in my memory, never has such charges of bias been levelled against any other regulatory body. The government must beware. It is but one short step to crony capitalism. This is what Rahul Khullar has written.
I don't want to join issues with him or with anybody else. I'm only making a general comment that I think people should refrain from, and it's not fair to question somebody's honesty or integrity without any substantial evidence or reasons, just because any decision will favor somebody, will actually be hurting somebody. Then you start saying that because it favored somebody, then therefore you are working for him. That's not really fair. Okay. So I think such kind of allegations.
Because this is not the first time he's saying it. He has said that in the past you dawdled over the tariff plans of RelGeo, which led to predatory pricing.
I don't want to, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to join these issues. I can only say that just because you are an expert on the issue or you are a very wise person, yes, you are fully justified in sort of criticizing the issue on merit, but probably you are not justified in leveling charges or questioning somebody's integrity.
I'll take that point. And moving on from this, the other fear may be that because now that the IOC will be cut, is there an opportunity for RelGeo to lower its tariffs, which could then in turn mean to the incumbents lowering their prices, and we are back at the whole game of
tariffs are under forbearance, as you know. So therefore, we are not going to intervene in them unless we find something which is not correct.
But is this an opportunity for another round of price cuts, which can lead to more problems on the balance sheet?
I cannot forecast. We have conducted an exercise whose limited purpose was to figure out the costs.
Correct.
And we have done that.
Okay.
Right? And we have issued the regulation. Thereafter, I think we will see what happens.
And the incumbents say they're not, they don't see tariffs go down. Is there any merit in that?
I will not, again, as I said, tariffs are under forbearance. They may go up, they may go down. So I'm not really making any forecast.
Okay.
Only thing is, we feel that by reducing the interconnect user charges, tariffs are likely to go down.
You know, the other worrisome thing was it a bogey? Not a bogey is a very strong word actually. The incumbent said that with this, it's going to impact their ability to invest in infrastructure. For example, in that famous letter that Vittorio Colau has written to the government, he's saying he may be forced to, you know, shut down some sites, etc. Do you find merit in this argument?
I find no merit in such kinds of arguments, because basically, as I said, our thinking is that interconnect user charges cannot be a profit vertical, and we have computed the real charges, and that's what will be paid for. So really they have no effect on the stress, strain, or the ability to
So it should not impact rural infrastructure development
No,
either.
certainly not.
Mr. Sharma, I'll move on from this. The last time I interviewed you, you said you hadn't had a chance to see it, but if you have now, the RelGeo phone is now ready to be dispatched for delivery. Have you seen the tariff plans? Is bundling the 3-year lock-in, is it fair for the consumer?
I have not seen the tariff plans as yet. I have not seen the phone also.
Okay.
So maybe we'll certainly discuss about it once it is out and it's available.
What about the spectrum auction? Are we still going to go ahead with the spectrum auction?
We have issued a consultation paper, and then we will see the reactions of the stakeholders, what their views are, and then we will take a call.
Because right now it would seem as if only what they need to renew, they'll renew, but it may not be a very successful auction given their balance sheets.
Actually, it is a priori. I cannot give you a view, because obviously everything will have to come out after the consultation process. We will consult.
What about Apple? Have they now started listening to you? Any forward movement on the app, on the Do Not Disturb app?
We got a mail from Apple a couple of days back in which they say that they want to discuss some solution with us. And we said, yes, you are welcome. So we will discuss that solution with them. Of course, they have yet not given a confirmatory response as to whether they will enable their operating system to load our application or not. But we'll certainly, we are the people who want to discuss, and we want to do work in consumers' interest.
Yeah.
And therefore we are willing to sit with them and sort of figure out as to whether there is a solution to this problem or not.
Mr. Sharma, one of my final questions to you also is that the Mumbai High Court has recently set aside the investigation that the Competition Commission of India was supposed to carry out on cartelization by the incumbents as alleged by RelGeo. Do you think this is going to have any bearing at all, and just for clarification for the markets, on the penalty recommendation that you had made, which is now pending with the Telecom Commission on cartelization?
I didn't understand the question.
That 3,000 crore rupee penalty, sir, that you had recommended. Since then, I think there have been more allegations of cartelization by RelGeo, which the CCI was supposed to investigate. It has been set aside by the
This is a legal issue, and I don't know. I don't have any response. I have not studied the judgments of the Bombay High Court and other issues.
My final question to you, and this I'm going to ask on the behalf of consumers. We're all getting SMSs every day that we need to start linking our phones with Aadhaar. They want to take our biometrics when we go to these showrooms. Are you going to make sure that the data is protected? Should they really be taking our biometrics? It's already with the UIDAI.
Well, I don't think telecom companies should be taking biometrics, because telecom companies should only use authentication.
But then they take the biometrics to authenticate.
You see, taking the biometrics is one part. You put your thumb on the or finger on the biometric device doesn't mean that somebody is taking the biometric. Taking in the sense as in storing. It basically means that the features of those biometrics go back on the server of the UIDAI, and UIDAI responds yes and no, yes or no. Which means that whether you are
so they're not recording it.
So they're not recording it. They cannot. In fact, they must not record it, because if they are doing that, it is illegal.
Mr. Sharma, thank you so much for being candid, and thank you for giving us the interview.
Thank you very much.